What's up everyone, Aaron Schatz here, and today I'm going to show you how to do another Masternode from scratch. This time it's Galactrum, otherwise known as ore. So if you mine this coin, you are mining ore, just like I am. Before we begin, let's go over some things that you will need. First thing is a server. What does a server mean? It means something that's connected to the internet all the time and it's active and able to be coordinating on the actual internet. So how masternodes actually function is, if you see coins and they say, oh, can I have some ad nodes? That's basically saying what things are online at this point in time, or what things are online permanently that my wallet can connect to and actually sync up with the blockchain. So a masternode incentivizes that process, basically saying you're going to keep this node online all the time and I'm going to give you something back for your trouble of doing that. The server should be something like Ubuntu 16.04, long-term 64-bit, at least 1 gig of RAM. You can run stuff on Windows, you can run it on Mac. This guide is not going to go over how to do that, but the gist is basically the same. You basically have to get the wallet installed and then do some commands from the personal wallet. But again, this guide is specifically focused on having a VPS, a Linux VPS, specifically Ubuntu 16.04, 64-bit, at least 1 gig of RAM. If you are going to run multiple coins on the same server, I really recommend 2 gigs of RAM. It doesn't actually matter that much because we're going to put a swap file anyway, just in case. You will also need root access or sudo access. Either one works because we'll create a user account for us after. You will need access to the server somehow, so that probably means SSH access. Or otherwise, however you're going to access the server to actually do any commands. You will need a copy of this guide with the commands. If you're watching this video right now, I posted the guide in the actual description, so please check that out. You will need a working Galactrum wallet on your personal computer, so this is your personal wallet side. It has nothing to do with the VPS. You will also need, once the actual wallet is set up on your personal computer, a transaction of exactly 1,000 ore to a receiving address that you own, or enough Galactrum ore in your wallet to send a exactly 1,000 ore transaction to yourself. And we will go through that in this guide too. We will go through the process of creating a new receiving address and sending 1,000 ore to yourself. Again, basic knowledge of Linux command line tasks would be very helpful while you're following this guide. Most of the guides, most of the setups for masternodes focus on Linux, and it's extremely helpful if you have some basic knowledge in this area. That being said, let's just hop right into this. To get started, let's just assume that you don't have an exact transaction of 1,000 ore to yourself. So what do I mean by that? Let's just say that you bought a whole bunch of stuff through an exchange and you said, oh, I'm going to send myself 1,000 ore. And you hit 1,000 ore, send it to yourself, and then when you get it, it's like 999.99 yada yada, or whatever they took out in a transaction fee. That's the thing you have to take into account. So let's just say that the exchange charges you 0.01 ore. You have to send yourself 1,000.01 ore. So when they take out their transaction fee, you get exactly 1,000 ore. So let's just say that you made a mistake and then you got more ore to cover that, and now you have a little over 1,000 ore in your account. So what we're going to do first is we're going to generate a new masternode key, which I will show you right now. So basically, if you have the GUI wallet, you can do this in the advanced settings. I think it's help advanced or edit advanced, somewhere like that, but I only use command line wallets. I'm on Linux, I compile my own wallets. This way they can run in the background. I don't have to have Windows open all the time, so the commands are basically the same. So once you get into it, the only difference is you're not going to see the Galactrum-CLI. You're only going to see the command itself. So for instance, like to generate a new masternode key, it's this command for me. And if I hit enter, it would generate. But for you, if you have the GUI wallet, you just pull up that advanced thing and it gives you the command prompt. You would only type in this, masternode gen key. So anytime you see this for me, just disregard that if you have the GUI wallet. If you have the command line wallet, good for you. Let's keep going. So first thing we're going to do is generate a key. What does this key do right here? Well, this key is going to basically allow the personal wallet and the Masternode wallet to communicate to each other on the network. So I have no problem showing you this key because I'm not going to use it for an actual Masternode that I'm going to run. So we'll just use this temporarily. So keep that, and you're going to want that posted in your scratch pad. So got a little scratch pad here, or Masternode. You also need, reminder, your IP address, and this is the port for Galactrum. So we'll just put this key, that's the key, and now go back to the steps. What are we going to do? We're going to get a new receiving address. So how do you do that in the wallet? If you have the GUI wallet, it's pretty obvious, but if you don't have the GUI wallet, you just type get new address. Bam! We're going to use this address that I just generated for myself as the Masternode's receiving address. And I suggest you do this with every new Masternode you create. It is quite possible to have multiple Masternodes on the same receiving address, but don't suggest doing it just in case there's any issues that may pop up. It's easy to generate a new address, you might as well do it. So this way you see your payments coming in from each node. So now that I got that in my scratch pad, let's go back to the setup guide. Now we want to send a exactly 1,000 OR transaction to myself. So this is the command that we're going to use right here. Now, address you replace with the address that we actually just generated. Bam, like that. So this is the command, and I'll do it manually. Galactrum CLI send to address. This is the address, 1,000. Now, before you do this, double check everything. Because as soon as you make a mistake here, that 1,000 OR is gone. So hopefully I didn't make a mistake. Bam. Now, this is the transaction hash that gets generated. And we're going to need to use that in a second. But you could find the same thing out by basically doing this. You want to see the transaction that's going to come out. So we'll just say list transactions. So the command that I'm sending list transactions is basically saying, hey, can you tell me all the transactions that have occurred on my wallet, including this one? Bam. So you could see that this is the sent transaction, and this is the received transaction. Very, very confusing, I know. But we want the receive, not the sent. So we're going to take this transaction ID, right? And then this V out, and that we need to put in the Masternode file, the masternode.conf. You can also get this from typing this command. Masternode outputs. And then the outputs, I'll show you mine, the outputs will now contain all your Masternode outputs. And you can see I have 4. I have 3 other Masternodes already, so this is the 4th one I'm making. So you can see this transaction here starts with 65 right here, this one, see? So this is the line that I'm going to use. So this is the transaction, and this is the actual V out. So we're going to take these two things, copy this, go to our scratch pad over here, and I'll call it TX, and that's fine for now. I'll show you what to do in a second. We go back to the step-by-step guide, and the next thing we're going to do is we're going to have to go find the masternode.conf file of our personal wallet, which on Linux is in your home directory and under a hidden directory right here. So like basically if I showed you the path, I'm going to show you the path right now. So this is the path. What I'm going to basically do is use VI, which is a command line text editor to do this. So if I type VI, and then I hit my home directory .galactrum, Galactrum, and then Masternode, and I hit enter, I'd be able to actually enter this. Instead, because it has all my other private keys, I don't want to show you that because that is important to me. I'm going to show you this file that I've created for you. So you want this to be your Masternode conf file in the Galactrum directory. So what are we going to do? We're going to populate this. So you have your IP address, which is here. You have your port, so this is how it looks. You have your alias to start. Let me start over. This is how the file looks. You have your alias, which is any name you want to pick, no spaces. Just choose alphanumeric. Like, don't go crazy, no spaces. So like an alias is like if you had many master nodes, I call mine MN1, MN2, just, if you have one Masternode, just call it Masternode if you want. It's no big deal. Just to make sure you know what it's called, because you're going to call that later. So as you can see, I put MN0 on mine. Next space, you put the IP address, colon, the port. Port is 6270. Next, you need the key, and the key is the key that we generated right here. So put that, boom. Next is the transaction right here. Oh, now you can't see it. Let's get this out of the way for a second. Next, let's go to the end of this file. You hit that 1 because that was the V out. And now you have the masternode.conf. Save that, and we'll move on. Now that you've saved the masternode.conf in your personal wallet configuration directory, what we're going to do is we're going to restart the wallet. If you have the graphical wallet, shut it down, restart it. If you're using the CLI like I am, issue the command to stop. So we go to that, hit stop, bam. Server stops. Now we're going to restart it. Daemon, which is that. So basically I'm telling the actual daemon to daemonize yourself, which does automatically. It's just a habit. You don't have to actually do that switch for daemon, but I do it anyway, so there you go. And then you hit enter, and it'll start up in the background. Then make sure that it's actually running. Info. Alright, great, good to go. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to switch over to the VPS side of things. So if the console was on my right, that was my personal side. Now I'm going to switch over to the left side of the screen for the VPS side of things. So the majority of the setup will now go on the VPS side of things. So get ready to SSH into your server, because that's what we're going to do. Remember, left side means I'm going to be on the actual VPS itself. The first thing you're going to do is, do you remember the IP address of the server that you have? Because that's really important for SSH. Now, when everybody says, oh, what program do you use to SSH into something, I always respond with SSH, because on Linux, the command is literally called SSH. I use a VPS company called Linode. I like them. They have offices in New Jersey, so that's why I like them. Not to say that New Jersey is a great state, but there you go. So what we're going to do is we're going to SSH as root into our server. So this is my server, and I don't care that I'm showing you the IP, because I'm not going to use this in the future anyway. This is just a temporary thing for this guide. So feel free to try to hack it, because it probably won't be mine. Actually, don't. That's pretty nefarious. Don't do that. So, yep. Sounds good to me. Put in the password that you have or was generated. Now you're logged in as root. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a user, and because I like calling things as my own user, I'm going to add myself. Add user Aaron Schatz. Going to add a password, so make sure you put in your password. You're going to have to retype it, so make sure you type it twice. Now you're going to put the full name. You don't have to do this, but I'll just do this. Just hit enter until you hit the information is correct. Hit yes or Y, and there you go. Now you have a user that you've created. Now that user, Aaron Schatz, one word, is what you're going to do whenever I say replace this with your user's directory. So Aaron Schatz is the user's directory, right? Under home, you see home, Aaron Schatz. This is what I refer to when I say your user. So when I say your user, it's Aaron Schatz. Just be mindful of that. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure that I have sudo access under my user account. So the easiest way to do this without breaking anything is to type vi sudo. And I'm going to tell you how to do this because it gets kind of weird. So I think this is nano. So what we're going to do, this is another command line text editor. So you're going to use the arrow keys to come down to where the cursor is right under this root thing right here. And then type in your username. And then hit space, hit capital all, equals, parentheses, all, colon, all, end parentheses, space, all. So basically, the line right above it looks exactly the same as mine, except the usernames are different. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to hit Control X. It'll say, do you want to save? And then you want to say, hit Y for yes, and then you hit Enter. That's it. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to get out of this. We're going to exit the entire server and now log in as a user. So now, for SSH, it's the same username that I have on my personal computer, so I don't have to say someone at, it literally uses my username. So just type in that. Now if you want to check to make sure that your sudo access does work right now, hit sudo -s, type in your password of your username, your actual user's account, and you should get into root. That's how you get into root from sudo. So exit root, go back into the actual thing, we'll clear the screen so it's on the top again. Now we're at this point in the guide right here. We're going to start grabbing packages to actually install. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually do an update. So we'll do that little update right there. We're basically fetching all the current sources to make sure all the locations are correct. So anything we want to install will be good. Now we're going to basically get something that will allow us to easily install a PPA. PPA is like a way so someone other than Ubuntu's maintainers can actually easily put packages on your computer. Really cool stuff. I like Ubuntu a lot. Now we're going to actually add the repository for Bitcoin. And this is used by almost every other coin. Every other coin usually forks Bitcoin or Dash or Pivx or something. So that's why we're adding this. We're going to grab the stuff from there to make life a lot easier. Now we're going to do an update again, just to make sure that we grab that new source from the Bitcoin PPA. Now we're going to do this gigantic command right here. This is all one line, so make sure you place this on one line, and I'll explain what it's doing. So basically what this is doing is installing things like Git, build essentials, things for automake, and like things like libboost, things that are required to actually compile and run cryptocurrencies. Pretty much anything that Bitcoin requires is pretty much almost anything that every other coin requires. There are some coins that require additional things, but you'll have to go to those guides to actually figure out that. Most of them that I've seen, the more common ones, like they require Java for their graphical stuff, or some of them actually require for the actual command line, which I think is a little weird, but there you go. So we'll let this go for a little bit. And then the last command we're going to do is tell the system to now upgrade all its packages that haven't been upgraded. You should always do this, especially when you get a new server. Just make sure everything is up to date. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say to the server, you know what? Now that you've done all that, just reboot yourself, come up fresh. This is all the steps that I do on a new server for crypto. Like, all the same steps up to this point are all the same. So just let that go. If your server's slower, well, it is what it is. There's one step of this guide that you're going to have to basically just walk away because it's going to take a really long time. But we'll get to that in a little bit. Almost done, I think. Okay, this is what I wanted to show you. If you get this type of screen right here, just keep the local version. It's basically saying, what do you want to do? I detected a different file in grub. Just keep the version that's installed. Don't worry about it. Just keep going. Okay, should be getting close. Oh, there we go. Okay. Now that it's all done, we're going to tell the server, all right, reboot yourself, get all the new stuff that you just got. If you needed a reboot, which it probably does because there's a lot of kernel changes and such. So hit sudo reboot, easy command, and away it goes. Now I'm going to clear my screen. I'm back on my personal computer on this side. So we're going to let that reboot, and then we'll SSH back in and continue. I've waited a little bit of time, so we're going to SSH back into the server. Remember your IP, right? SSH back into that bad boy. And your password, here we go. Now, let me clear the screen, so it's at the top. To clear the screen, you hit clear, by the way. just like this. So that's the command I'm using on Linux. Now, what we're going to do is configure a swap file. So if you have not enough RAM on your server, let's just say you really cheaped out and got 512 megs of RAM, you really need to do this. So what we're going to do in this step is to add a 2 gig swap file. Now, the server that I have already has a 512 meg swap file and 1 gig of RAM that's allocated to it on the hardware side of things. But I think if you're going to run multiple coins, adding a swap file doesn't hurt. So we're going to add a 2 gig swap file. So first command that we're going to do is basically going to say, I need you to allocate a file of 2 gigabytes in some location. This some location is called swap file. So the root swap file, that's where we're putting this. We're also going to make this not readable by anyone but root, which is good because we don't want anybody reading it. We're going to tell that this is a swap file, and then we're going to tell it to actually turn on the swap file. And then this command basically says, I'll explain this command. So this command right here, it says echo this stuff into this file. And this file is actually the file that says to the system, when you come back online, please mount all this stuff. So it's saying, oh, by the way, this thing over here is a swap file. I need you to mount that swap file upon reboot. That's what that means. So now that that's all set, we'll set up the firewall. And you'll be like, wait, I didn't set this up. Yes, you did. In this command, I actually installed the actual firewall UFW. Really simple to use firewall. There's better ones that you could use, but honestly, this one works just the same. So just go with it for now. If you're new to Linux, just go with what I'm telling you. If you're not new to Linux, use whatever you want. So the first thing we're going to do is going to say, I want to deny any incoming requests by default because that's the way any firewall should work. Now I'm going to say anything outgoing is fine. We trust the server for now. We're also going to allow SSH is what we're using right now. If we didn't allow SSH, the server would just be there and we couldn't even control it. That's kind of pointless. This one is saying I need you to open up port 6270 TCP to the world so the master node can actually connect with the actual internet. So the blockchain can actually talk to this node. So that's why you need to open that port. Now for any other coins, you'd want to poke holes as well in the firewall for those ports. So you'd actually do this step multiple times with the actual different port numbers. And then what we're going to do is we're going to turn on the firewall. Now this is the step where things might get weird. So you can see it's saying, oh, this may disrupt existing SSH connections. Do you wish to proceed? Yes. Now, it didn't on mine, but if it does on yours, go back and re-log in. Hopefully you have access to your box. And if you don't, restart this entire guide and do over because you did something wrong. And I mean, erase the VPS and start over again. There's really no harm in doing that. So now you're back on the box. Let's clear the screen. What we're going to do is we're going to hit our home directory. And this little tilde is the home directory. So I say cd, which is change directory, tilde, which I'm already in my home directory. I'm going to make a directory called Masternode. So now I have a directory called Masternode. I'm going to change into that directory, cd, Masternode, boom. So now I'm in the Masternode directory. I want to clone the actual repository of Galactrum into that. So if I show you this, ls means list. So now I'm going to show you that there is a directory called Galactrum. That was the actual Git repository that we cloned into there. So I'm going to type cd Galactrum to actually get into that directory. And this is the directory structure. Most coins follow a similar pattern. You're going to either use something like autogen or make directly or configure first. So Galactrum uses a couple steps. It uses autogen, which generates a configure file. Then you configure it, and then you make it. So we're going to follow this step by step. So now that we're in the Galactrum directory, you just basically hit period / autogen. And then hit enter. And it goes. So this isn't the slow part yet. We're going to get to the slow part. And then I'm going to tell you to go make a sandwich or go eat something or Go out and have a good time because it's going to take a long time. This is not the long time just yet. Okay, that's done. Now, the next command that you're going to do, if I actually type ls again, you're going to see it configured there now. You're like, wow, that just appeared out of nowhere. That's what AutoGen does. So we're going to type period / configure. Enter. Now this is going to do a whole bunch of checks. It's going to say, oh, do you have all the dependencies, and do you have all this other stuff, yada, yada, yada. Do I have all the stuff I need to compile this? And if it blows up at you, you did something wrong, go back, follow the guide again. So this is the step where most things just go wrong. And this basically is just a double check saying, do I have all the things I need to actually build this piece of software? And as you can see, hopefully it does work. Let's see. Oh, here it goes. Wait. There it goes. And you don't see any errors. You don't see anything. So now we're good to go. This is the part where you're going to get ready to make a sandwich, because this is the last command before it's going to take a long time, and then we'll regroup in a little bit. So once you hit make, the command is called make, M-A-K-E. Hit enter, walk away, because it's going to take at least 20 or so minutes depending on your actual CPU speed, how much literal RAM you have. If you have a really fast computer, like on the VPS side of things, it may go much quicker, but generally this will take 20-30 minutes to compile. Now, there is a way you can actually skip this compilation process entirely. In fact, Galactrum actually has an easy-to-use installation script. So if you go to Galactrum's website, you go to the Masternode guide, it'll just tell you like a couple of simple commands, and it'll literally do everything for you. This guide is primarily for the people that want to know how to do things manually. So we are compiling from scratch, we're doing everything from scratch, and we're going to start up this as soon as this is all done compiling. So if you see any warnings during the compile, no big deal, just let it go. If you see any errors, that's a problem. Restart the guide, blow up the VPS, get a new one, restart the guide. Something was wrong. Remember, VPSs are easy. Just delete them, redo it. No big deal. So we'll let this go. We'll come back in a little bit, and we'll continue where we left off. Alright, look at this screen now. You can see that the compilation's all done, there was no errors, and if we actually check the actual location, which will be in the source folder, src, you can see that there are 3 files with green text. That means they're executables, and that's the 3 that we need. So, let me go back to where we last started. So now, we're going to move them to the actual directory that you can call from anywhere in the system, so you don't have to do the / like I do on my personal wallet side. So we're basically going to move them to user bin. So we're going to go into the src directory, which is source directory, and there's 3 files in there. We're going to move those 3 files into the user bin directory, because those are part of your path, and the path basically says, if you don't say that I want to run something from this specific directory, which directory should I look in? That's what the path does. So we're going to have to do sudo move mv Galactrum CLI is one of them, and we're going to tell it to move it to user bin, just like that. Boom. Got to put in your password if it's sudo. And then we're going to type the second command manually instead of doing my up. By the way, if you, whoop, here's a little, there we go, better. So if you see that, that's what it looks like. Galactrum D. Galactrum D, right? Yep. Oh, by the way, if you hit tab, it auto completes, so it'll show you that. So that's what I just did there. So Galactrum D, then over there. User bin. Move that there, and then the other one we're going to move is the TX, which I'm not actually sure what it does, but I know it's important. So we'll move that there too. Now it's in your path directory. It's in a directory that's in your path, I should say. What we can do now is just test it. And we can test it, and I'm going to show you how to test this. So basically, I can go to my home folder, cd tilde, which is the home folder. I can just call this from anywhere. So let's just call the daemon. So Galactrum D daemon. and it's the server starting up. So Galactrum is an interesting one. A lot of coins force you to put a RPC user and RPC password in the configuration file. Galactrum doesn't. But now, because the actual thing is started, it created one and it's blank, the configuration file. But let's just see that it's what it's doing. So Galactrum CLI, get info, and you can see that it's got some blocks downloaded, and it's got 3 connections already going. So if we do this again, you can see that it's getting blocks. Do it again, and you can see that the connections to the network are responding, and we're downloading the blockchain, and that's great. We can actually let this go until the blockchain syncs entirely, but for all intents and purposes, we really don't need to worry about this right now. So what we're going to do is we are going to just shut it down. So let's do Galactrum CLI, stop. Now it's not running anymore. And then we're going to move on to the next step. If you look over to the guide, the next step is to set up the config, right? Okay, so now I'm going to show you actually where the config file is on the server since it's a brand new wallet. So you might be wondering, all right, where is the config file? Well, what does this mean, this VI and then all this stuff? So I'm going to show you this on the actual server itself. So basically, I'm in my home directory, and what does the home directory contain? Well, just the directory of Masternode. But that's not all it contains, right? So if I do an ls-a, which means all, you'll see some other stuff in there too. These are hidden files. So on Linux, anything that begins with a period is considered to be hidden. It's not really hidden. It just means that like any lists won't show them unless you specifically ask for that. So you can see that there's a .galactrum directory. So let's go into that. Let's see what that looks like. So now let's see what's in this .galactrum directory in our home directory. Well, you can see one specific file called galactrum.conf right here. So this file is the configuration file. And now what we're going to do is we're going to modify that configuration file. But you can actually take this command right here. Where is it? And put that in there. And it's telling you that it's modifying the blank file, right? So here's the actual file that I want you to do. Now, there's a couple ways that you can actually get these values. So number one, RPC user and RPC password require a random string of characters. So let's just do these two for now and I'll show you. So basically, to operate VI, all you have to do is hit insert. So if you hit insert, you could see on the bottom it says insert. Now you can start typing. And that's fine, you can just go back and stuff. So VI is my preferred editor because I just know it. I've been using it for like a really long time, but I know how to do Nano and all the others. But VI is really easy. Well, to me at least. So remember, hit insert, and now you're in insert. If you hit insert again, you're in replace. Don't be in replace mode. Hit it again, be in insert mode. And if you want to, we'll go into how to do this, but let's just say this. Now you can actually paste stuff in here. So I could just literally take this entire thing in here and just go in here and paste it in. So it's like that, and of course it added a tab, so you don't want to, it doesn't really matter, so we'll just leave it in there like that. But if you see, like, there's this tab here between, you don't want to really have that. So, yeah, so let's do this real quick. So I'm going to show you a command real quick to get out of this in case you messed up. So let's just say you messed up and you want to quit. So I hit escape to get out of the insert, and then I hit colon Q. And that means quit. Now if I try this, it's going to say, wait, there's changes. Do you want to save them? And I really don't want to save them. So I'm going to hit colon again, Q, and I'm going to put an exclamation point, meaning like, I just want to get out of here. Boom. So now I got out of there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this file again. Oop, what am I doing here? There we go. And now I'm going to go over here and then get rid of this tab. And then I'm going to go into insert mode and then paste it in there. And now there's no spaces. And I will put that back. So what you're going to do is you're going to use your up arrow key, come over here to the end of this, and you're going to erase this part right up until the equals. You're going to put some, you can get a generated, a password generator or a string generator and do this, but you can just do this, just alphanumeric string. And you can do the same thing for the second one. Alphanumeric string, whoop, you don't want a space in there, no space. Now, RPC allow IP is basically saying, I only accept connections on this box only. So theoretically, the user and password of the RPC connection doesn't even matter. We also, this is a listen and it's a server, meaning like it's going to listen for connections and it's a server. Daemon is an interesting one. And if you use the Galactrum installation script from the actual guide itself, the official guide, it uses systemd for doing a lot of stuff. But we're not going to use systemd. I'll probably make another video about how to do systemd stuff. But for now, let's just assume that everything is going to be done very manual. So you want daemon in there. You want to log timestamps, not that you'll ever check them at all. You want max connections to be 256 because you want at least this many to be able to ping you if needed. Your external IP, do you remember what that is? No? Well, let's go back. Remember your scratch pad? So you're going to take this and put this here, put that there. Right? Great. Oh, you remember your Masternode private key? The key that you generated? No? You got the scratch pad, right? So you take that key, put it here, bam! That's it. That's it. Now, we just write this file. So by basically hitting escape, I get to the command. I hit the colon, and I hit W, and I hit enter, and it says, okay, it wrote the file. Now I'm going to hit colon Q, and I should I should quit the file without it complaining. And that's it. So now what we're going to do is go back to the guide. We're going to start the daemon again. So you can do it from anywhere. Galactrum D, daemon. Hopefully there's no errors. And that's it. So now the wallet's all set up, and it's going to do its thing. I'm going to show you some commands in the meantime. So basically, whoop, KS, I don't know what that is. LS. So basically, Galactrum CLI get info. So you're going to see that this is going to be downloading all these blocks, and you can see every time you just keep going, just keep downloading blocks. There's a couple of other interesting commands you can actually do. So if you do like mn sync info, oh, that might not work on this one. So let's do, you think of another one. Actually here, I'm going to show you something interesting. So if you type in help, it's going to show all the commands it could do. So if we go to like, let's do, see mn sync, oh I'm sorry, not info, status. My mistake. Status. So this is the interesting part. When you want to start a Masternode, you want this thing right here to be all good. You want all these to not be false. You want them to be either true or fine. It's going to say, see this asset name? It says Masternode sync initial. You want this to basically sync the entire blockchain, then do what it needs to do, and then this will report a different thing. So you see how these are all false? You don't want them to be false. You want them to pretty much be true. So we'll get out of that. That's a quick command too. So like you can see all the commands in the wallet up there, and that's just an aside. The second thing we're going to have to do is install another little program called Sentinel. And what Sentinel does is basically just pings the actual daemon, or I shouldn't say the daemon, but the actual wallet itself, and be like, are you running correctly? Are you running correctly? Just keeps doing it over and over and over again. So that's the thing that we're going to do now. And Sentinel is required by Galactrum. Some coins do not require Sentinel to be installed. And if anyone wants to tell me exactly what the purpose of Sentinel is, besides just annoying people, I would love to know. But Galactrum requires Sentinel. It's not that big of a deal. It's just an extra step. So let's go do that now. So to install Sentinel, let's go into the directory that we created. So you can see now we're in the home/Masternode, my home directory /Masternode/Galactrum. I'm going to clone Sentinel in that directory now. Okay, so now I'm going to show you that there is a directory called Sentinel now. So this command is going to go into that directory right now. So now this is saying I'm going to create a virtual environment and go. So watch this. Virtual environment. And it's going to do its thing, right? Let it do its thing. It's basically like a Python thing. And then it's more complicated for me to explain what it's doing than just to say run these commands. Now run the second command, which is going to activate it. Whoop. There we go. Now it's activated, and you can see like this little guy right here has changed. So we're going to put this here. Now it's going to install the requirements and do all the stuff. and then you want to deactivate it because you don't need to be in that virtual environment anymore. Boosh, you see it went away. Okay, so now you have Sentinel actually installed, and you'll be like, well, I didn't install anything, nothing's running. That's right. Sentinel requires something else to run it periodically. And in Linux and Unix-like systems, there's something called cron. There's other things you can use besides cron, but cron is the easiest thing to do. Now, most guys that I've seen tell you to use cron from the actual system level. I don't like that as much. I think if you're running this as a user, you can use the user level cron. And to do that, we're going to just do cron tab E. But before we do that, we can actually do some tests. But instead of doing that, let me just see how Galactrum's doing here. So Galactrum CLI, MN sync, info. Whoops, I keep doing info, it's status. Okay, now the blockchain, see this, is blockchain sync true? That's good. So if we do a get info, you can see that the number of blocks has not changed, therefore pretty much that means the blockchain is now synced. So if we do a status on the Masternode part, oh, is Masternode list synced is now true? Good. So now we're getting there. Now we can actually finish this up. So now what we're going to do is we're going to open up a cron tab. So you can do this from anywhere. So I'm going to take cron tab -E, and it's going to ask you which one to use. It's going to say Nano's the easiest, but we were just using Vim, and I just showed you how to use Vim. So just use number 3, Vim Tiny. I mean Vim Basic, sorry. Vim Basic 3. So this file is telling you how it's going to work. Now, the easiest way to do this is just hit insert, so you're in insert mode, hit end, and don't listen to me, don't hit end. Just hit the down arrow all the time until you get to the end right here. So now the cursor's on the last thing. Hit enter to create a new line, and this is where I'm going to tell you to pay attention to the user directory. So you see I have my name in there, home/Aaron Schatz, right? Make that the same as the user name that you made in the first part. So if you made your name Masternode, make that Masternode. There you go. So just remember, this is going to look different based on whatever you do. So I'm going to take this command and I'll explain what it's going to do. I'm just going to paste that in there, and of course I'm going to get rid of these, so don't paste in the spaces in the beginning. So let me explain what this actually does. Okay, so cron basically says, okay, at certain intervals I need you to run a command. So this is like at every minute, every hour, every day of the month, every day of the week. That's what these stars mean. It just means at any time you're going to run something, run it. So that's what that means. And then this is the command. This long thing is actually one command. It says go into the Sentinel directory, and after you're in that directory, run Python and then run Sentinel. That's basically what it says. And then pipe all that stuff into dev null, which is basically a black hole. So anything that comes out of that script will just be pushed into nothingness. And this means any errors that are also generated push into nothingness as well. I'm going to show you what that means in a little bit. So if we go to this, I'm going to go to the next line here. So I'm going to make sure that this is on the next line. Because my screen is a little smaller, this is actually taking up one line, so I'm going one more down. And now on every reboot, I'm going to make sure Galactrum starts up on reboot. So here's a special command for cron, at reboot, Galactrum D, daemon, and that's it. So basically what this is saying is upon reboot, make sure you start Galactrum automatically. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to hit escape, we're going to hit colon, we're going to hit W, and I'm going to show you another command, Q. So we're going to hit colon WQ, says please write the file and then quit when you're done. Enter. Done. That's it. So now this will be spinning up in the background every minute it'll try to run. But now let me show you something. So I'm in Sentinel's directory, right? So if I take this command right here and I take it from this point without the piping to dev null, I'm going to show you what it's doing. So like, let's just run this command, see what it does. See? Invalid Masternode status. It means that it's communicating with the Galactrum daemon. That means it's ready to go. And as soon as you start it from the personal wallet side, everything will be running just fine. So let's just do one more check of the the status. Everything is true except for the is failed. You don't want that to be true because it means it's failed. So you can see this. This is what you want. Masternode sync finished. This is all ready to go. So now the last part is you go back to the personal wallet side and then you start the actual node. So why don't we just do that right now? So I'm going to put this up here. Remember, this is my personal wallet side. So I'm going to put the guide over here, so hopefully you still see it. And this is the command. So Galactrum CLI, Masternode, start, alias, if I can spell it, and then the alias that you gave in that file. Now, what did we give in that file? Let's see. MN0. So theoretically, I should type this out and it should just work. Galactrum CLI, Masternode, start, alias, MN0. Here's the moment of truth. Here is the moment of truth. Enter. You're done. Congratulations. You just started another Masternode up. As long as that says successful, you're good to go. There are some commands I can actually tell you to actually get some interesting information, but I can't show them to you. I can't show you the output because it has some things that I don't want to give to you, like some of the private keys. So I'll just tell you some of the interesting commands that you can do from the personal wallet side. So let's just say you have a Masternode file, and you want to see, like, oh, okay, tell me all my configurations I have in the Masternode file. Tell me if they're actually seen on the network. Okay, just do Galactrum CLI, Masternode, list-conf. And if you enter that command, it'll tell you everything in your Masternode file and what's happening on the network. So if I did this, and I'll see if I can blot this out. So I want to show you only the relevant line. So you could see, to remind myself, I just hope that I blocked out the first three so you don't see this. So you could see the last one that has the last Masternode that we just started. It says the alias, the address, the private key, the transaction hash, the output index, and the status says watchdog expired. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, oh no, it's not enabled. That's not a problem. So what's going to happen is, in about an hour or maybe a little more, maybe a little less, this will actually turn to enabled. It takes a little bit for the node to get online, to start chatting with the network, for Sentinel to do its thing. In about an hour or in a couple of hours, if you see it and it's not enabled, that might show that you have another problem with the server. Again, you could just come in. The community is very helpful with this, so if you want to join our Discord server, please do. Very friendly people there. We can help you debug anything that you have. And remember, seeing this is not a big deal. So that's it. I'm serious. You're done. You can walk away and do whatever you want now. Just check it in a couple hours or so. Make sure it's enabled. And that's basically it. So, you know, to sum this up, it's basically like, it's very similar to any other coin that runs a Masternode. Some of the commands on the newer builds I've seen are slightly different on starting Masternodes, but the gist is all basically the same. If you found this guide helpful, you know, you want to throw a tip my way, you can check the description below. I've got some addresses for OR, BTC, LTC, and ETH. You know, tips if you want to, no big deal if you don't really care. If you have any comments, please post them below. I'll try to help out anybody I can. You can also come to Discord for the Galactrum server, and we can help you there. Plenty of stuff to do. So to sum everything up, I hope this was helpful, and probably going to have another guide up sooner or later on something else, or if you want me to explain something or an how-to guide, you know, just get in contact with me. I'm pretty easy to deal with, and if it's valuable, I'll post it for everybody else to see. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you in the next one.